This is Bob Odenkirk. You know him. Bob, I'm always thrilled to talk to you in any capacity. You're one of our funniest and most influential comedians, and you're already an Emmy Award winner as a comedy writer. How did you come to become a 3-time Emmy nominee for lead actor in a dramatic series on Better Call Saul?
Boy, that's the question I'm curious myself. Does anybody have any? I'm actually writing a book, and that's sort of at the core of it. Well, the actual facts of it are that I did comedy and wrote comedy for 25 years and made a good living at it and enjoyed it, loved it. It's what I dreamed of doing as a kid. And in the course of that time, I didn't really do too many dramatic roles. I did a play when I first moved to Chicago that I helped finance. We did Line by Israel Horowitz. Does anybody know that play? Yeah. And and in some of the comedy that I did, there was, you could say, semi-dramatic moments or a kind of a more realist performance or, tone to it. A few things in the course of the time that I did a lot of comedy. And then there were just some weird little moments here and there. And for some reason, I remember auditioning for Alexander Payne films, going back to the one with Jack Nicholson. What was it? About Schmidt.
Thank you.
And also Sideways, which came from him, not from me. I mean, I didn't audition. I'm not like one of these people who just auditions for everything. I don't audition much. So all I'm saying is that some people like Alexander or a few others thought, I should maybe belonged in drama or would do well there. Obviously. And, but I never really sort of pursued it or worked towards it much. And on a day I would wake up and just take out a piece of paper and try to write comedy. And that's kind of what I did. Maybe a comedy TV series or a film or just jokes or whatever was in front of me at the time. And Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould, Vince created Breaking Bad. Peter Gould wrote the first episode that featured Saul. It was an episode of Breaking Bad called Better Call Saul. And he really, in particular, writes the character wonderfully. And they both had the idea that I could play him based on Mr. Show, the comedy sketch show I did. It took me a long time to really ask them because I didn't want to find out. I mean, I honestly was afraid they'd be like, if I said, "Why did you hire me?" They'd be like, "You weren't the guy we wanted, actually. What happened? Thank you for bringing it up. No, thank you. We won't be needing you anymore."
That is not a Saul Goodman move to
right.
to
I
question
just
yourself
kept
like
my
that.
mouth shut and kept doing it. And but Vince said Mr. Show. And I mean, as far as digging into that answer, that's a real good question. I mean, what did you see? I think maybe because I've read a little from those guys about the part, they did think it was just a comedy relief for Breaking Bad. They didn't think it would be a part that would suggest much more than that.
Right.
And it could just be a fun, sort of short-lived character that would just, that the show was so bleak at a certain point. And I came in at the end of the, I mean, there is a point where you watch Breaking Bad and you realize that every character that you're seeing has like a gun to their head. This guy's got cancer and the gangs are after him. The wife is going to lose him. Now she's committed crimes. She's going to go to jail. I mean, just everybody you see, Jesse, everybody who crosses the vision is like going to get killed. And so it just gets bleak. It gets real. It's almost, you'd say, hard to sit with. You know, a world that's so harsh and frightening. So I think they thought it would just be comedy relief. But Peter's given me the compliment more than once now that in that first scene in the first scene where I come into the interrogation room and the cops are there and I say, get the hell out of here, you know, go get a juice box from your mom or whatever. And then he leaves and I shut the door and there's a kind of an exhale. It's like Saul, and you see that Saul is like thankful that worked, that his bluster worked. So Peter always points to that moment as like, okay, well, so that means there's a guy inside Saul, right, who is putting on this show and is thankful when it works, is a little bit skeptical of his own performance, you know, and that just suggests, I guess, more dimension and more of a person. Yeah, and so they were surprised, I think, by these moments that were in the first couple episodes, and then they carried on writing the character. But of course, Better Call Saul is a pretty big rethink of who he is and what those other layers of the character are. Right. So, how did I get there? I mean, the truth is, as an actor, I remember being on stage at Second City. I've told this story before, with Chris Farley and Jill Talley, and we were doing I think we were improvising, but maybe it was in the middle of a show. Because sometimes, you know, when you do a show 8 times a week, like Second City, as an actor, and whenever you're watching a Broadway show that's been running for a while, just know this. The actors are like designing rooms. They're picking out wall colors. They're thinking about, you know, what to wear next weekend when it rains. They're remembering shit they have to buy on the way home tonight. They've just done the show so much that it's not a good thing, but you can't help yourself. Your brain can kind of start doing other things. It's why directors have to, you know, come back to the show every couple of weeks and go, all right, come on, remember what we did when we first did this, what we said we were going to try to do here? So I remember being on stage, Second City, with these two, and I'm thinking, the audience is laughing, and I'm thinking, I should probably do drama. I really thought that. I really thought, you know, this is, I'm sitting there doing a scene, and I'm thinking, this is fun, but man, if I was sitting out there, I'd be looking at this guy, Chris Farley. Right. I wouldn't be looking at this guy, that's for sure. And why is that? Well, I mean, he's so fun to watch. And maybe it's a little unfair to compare yourself, anyone, to Chris. But really, truly, there's an element of comedy performer, I think, that is that rewards simplicity. In comedy, if you know that person quickly, like literally from like walking out on stage, it's just, you can just launch into the comedy. Whereas with drama, it's actually kind of better in a way to be a character who comes on screen or on stage and have the audience go, I'm not sure what he wants. Yeah. You know? So it's a weird thing, you know, it like would hurt comedy to have that level of complexity. I think usually it would just kind of make it less fun. Like I just want to know what's going on and enjoy it. And with drama, it's a little better if you're saying the character is saying one thing, but the audience is looking, trying to find that there's something more, something deeper. Yeah. And I kind of think that I just have a little more, God, this is so theoretical, like, but I don't know, you know, it's a thought. I think there's some truth to the inspiration of that moment of like, I think I just present a little bit more of a complex energy that's not as good in comedy. I love doing comedy, and I can do it.
Sure.
But boy, if you compare me to David Cross, Chris, Jack Black, some of the people I've shared the stage with in comedy, it's just they have a quality I don't have.
When when it was clear that there was going to be a spinoff for the Saul Goodman character, and it was going to, take him back to the time in his life when he was still Jimmy McGill, how did you want to think about, who that character was, and how did I assume there were conversations among yourself and Vince and Peter to sort of figure out who that person was? No. Oh.
There was a conversation at. It was sort of a joke for 2 or 3 years, the spinoff idea, a sequel idea. And Vince would make it too, but Vince would also ask me more than once. He came up to me and said, "Hey, you think there's a show on this guy? I think there's a show. I think there is." And I would always say, "Hey, man, if you think so, that's great." I would never say yes, or I think I didn't want the burden of trying to figure that out. And also seems so... who could hope for such a thing? Like to even say yes to that sounds like you're secretly at home waiting for it. And I wasn't. And I wasn't going to do that, So then after Breaking Bad ended, we met at the Chateau Marmont, which is always, try to go to the Chateau Marmont if you go to L.A., just to have a hamburger or something. It's a great L.A. locale. And it's so cool. And we just had a long conversation about a show, and they'd been thinking about it clearly, but as usual, they don't really tell you everything. And you've maybe interviewed Peter and maybe Vince. They never tell you everything. They just don't. They're always humble and, we don't know what we're doing. Yeah. I don't buy it. But they said, we've talked about the show, we've talked about what it could be, and maybe it could be a half-hour comedy. Maybe it could be a 1-hour procedural. They had an idea for a procedural where every week there's a different client for Saul, and every week he, solves their legal case without going to court. It's a cool idea for a show. Somebody told me The Good Wife is kind of like that. I've never seen that show. I know it's great. But is it like that though? Is that kind of what happens there? No. Okay. So that idea hasn't been done yet. But it's a good idea. It's a cool idea for a lawyer show. And then I said, look, I'm up for whatever you guys want to do. And I'm willing to risk it and try it and go out there and do it. And then they went off and created this, and I did not help at all. And I didn't want to, I don't want to help with the creation of it because I'm a better actor when I don't know where they wrote, how they wrote this thing, whatever dead ends they went down that they didn't choose, whatever possibilities that they might have been. I don't know any of that. As a writer, you could look at an article you wrote probably and pick out 2 or 3 things that you were like, I'm still not sure about that. Yeah. Or I had a different idea. I actually had a different theme for this. I think this is good, but maybe that other one was better. Nobody will ever know that I had that other angle. And it's not good for an actor to read a script and be going, well, I could have said this, but I say this. Maybe that other line would have been better. Maybe it's better. Shit, I don't know. And that's just not, it's better that you just get the script. That's what it is. That's what he says. This is what he wants. Now you justify it. Right. Now that's your job to think of the emotional turns and logic or wholeness that makes that make sense. And now then you play it as simply and honestly as you can. And don't be thinking about other things. Our actors on our show do comment a lot on the script and the scenes. They talk a lot about it, and they'll do it, when they get the script, we'll do it in rehearsal. There'll be a phone call, write an email. hey, I know I say this in one scene, I'm a little unsure. Is my character angry, or am I aware of what's happening, or a little unaware? Or I think it doesn't fit with what I've said before because I didn't. And usually those things can be sorted out fairly quickly. The writers, very often the writers will say, no, we know, we talked about that. We talked about that other option, or we talked about that possibility, but here's the logic of it. They'll give it to you. And that's great. And then there's times where they go, it's what he does. We need him to do it. It fits for us. And then it's your job as an actor to go figure out the pressures, the hopes, the growth maybe in the character that makes that turn, that progression make sense. Yeah. And it's a tribute to the writers that this can be done in our show. It's almost never do you go like, he's never said that. Why would he ever say that? It doesn't make any sense. That just doesn't really happen, I don't think. But sometimes you have to do the work. You have to go, and this is a neat thing where you think about people and you think about the complexity of, a human being. And it's so weird. I just flashed on Anthony Robbins and how a lot of success sort of gurus and books, they really do make sense when you read them or watch them. And in the moment, they make perfect sense. And they provide a clear path forward for you. But then as life carries on, it gets muddied. And that's because you're more complex over time than you are in the moment that you read the book or saw the film or whatever you did with the guru. And so there, people are complex and there's different, you do the math of what you're choosing and wanting differently when you're with your family, when you're alone, when you're a little older, when a bad thing just happened to you. This little scene here where he fake cries. I thought that was neat, and there's a lot of ways to approach that, and I wondered about it, and I thought, people who have a propensity for a certain thing, a certain type of behavior, and in this case, Saul, his brain just schemes. His brain thinks of ways out of little human traps and corners. I feel like if I was to provide the logic of that moment is that he genuinely feels crushed. He's genuinely had a really bad day and really bad couple weeks. He's genuinely feeling just kind of cracking open and wanting to cry or feel despondent. So it's a genuine feeling. But why does he go there in front of this woman? Whether he knows it or not, when he starts to break it up, his brain is scheming. And I think people are really like this. I mean, some part of them knows what they can do, and they can just, it's like jumping in the pool. They know they can just jump in that pool and they will find a way out because they just do. And so it's like at the beginning of this little run, he's genuinely opening up to her, but because some part of him saying, just let's change the tone in this room. Let's change the feeling. Let's make this personal. Let's get her on a different level, this lady, and then we'll see where we can go with it. Do you know what I mean? So, and it's honest, true. He genuinely feels that way. And then in the middle of it, he's like, oh, Chuck's represented here too. Chuck's fucking insurance. His malpractice insurance. And it comes to him. And then you have that great line, it's in the transcripts, which is, no one who's breaking apart, no one in history has ever cried and then said, it's in the transcripts. It's a detail that does not belong in a tearful sharing. It's so funny that it's almost a Mr. Show line.
Yeah.
Like I could imagine if we were doing a scene like that in Mr. Show, then you'd just dig deeper. Yeah. Page 30, page 32, page 32. Jesus, like it's pushing it. And then, the challenge is how can I want to make that work. I want to hide that in there, but make it real enough and that this, this other person would legitimately go, oh, all right, that's interesting. And not see it for the manipulative choice that it is.
Even as you're making all your choices and you're playing Jimmy, I mean, is there something sort of hanging over your head or in the back of your mind in the sense that, we know the person that he's going to become?
No, well, that's brought up a lot, Dave, and it's said a lot. And
I'm so tedious. I'm sorry.
No. I do get a lot of, we know who he is already. And it's like, well, the truth is, Saul Goodman, you only ever saw him at work. You never saw him go home. You never saw the door shut on the office and then him make another call or do something else. You saw him walk to his car and make some crack about his receptionist's ass or something. He did one or two things. I think one time he told Walter White, I'd quit if I were you, which is not really goes against his own needs. So that's kind of interesting because, he really is self-serving, but in that moment he says, I think he's looking at this guy, the guy's got a family, there's so much danger associated with where he's at and what he's doing, and he tells him, why don't you just stop? And so that's really a rare and odd moment for this character to have. And then there's the moment in the car with Jesse where he tells Jesse to go see Brock, you should go in there and see the boy and the mom. What's her name? What's the actor or the character's name? Andrea? No. It's Andrea, right? The mom.
Yeah, the Brock's mom.
Yeah. And he tells you should go see them. You should, and he sort of insists on it. And there's no value in that choice for him, for Saul. And I've always felt like that was a strange moment. That was the kind of moment the actor, I might go, what do I give a shit? I'm trying to make money here. I don't care about their human relationship. He really doesn't. But I think, it suggests that he's a person and that this facade is not entirely who he is.
Do you savor, particularly now on Better Call Saul? I mean, all these moments where, he often, we're slowly seeing him lose his, his idealism, or we're seeing those moments where, he thinks he's doing the right thing to help people, but we as the viewer know he's with each of those choices, he's actually going further along on the path that's going to make him that person.
Make the choice to be Saul.
Yeah, and as an actor, do you like those?
I feel bad. I feel terrible. And I think it was like episode 7 of this last season. I called Peter and Vince, and it's so strange because I've been one who's been like, we should move it faster. We should go faster. We should go faster towards Saul, and. It's just comedy, coming from comedy where it's like, I need the laugh. I need it. If I'm not hearing laughs, we got problems here, and it's like, these guys just slow down. It's okay. We're going to get there. It's moving forward. And then when it did move forward, which is around the middle of this last season, a kind of a big choice, when he decides to hurt Irene Landry, the lady.
Yeah.
When he chooses to hurt her, and it's a very conscious, cold, mercenary choice. That's not Jimmy. That's Saul. Yeah. And I called him and I was like, well, that's it. And they were like, what do you mean? I go, all he needs is the lime green socks. That's it. It's done. Get it. Let's get the suit on him and we're done. And they were like, well, what are you talking about? I go, this thing, this story as you wrote it. And it's so awful. And that's Saul. And what are we waiting around now? I guess it's over. I was really upset. I mean, I felt bad. I felt really terrible to say goodbye to this good guy.
Yeah.
And and then Vince and Peter were like, Bob, that's the story of the show. That's what you signed up for. We told everyone that's where we're going. And I was like, oh yeah, you're right. What's that?
What are you going to do when there's no Kim?
I know, well, that's it. But here's what I would say. They said two things. One, that's the show. But they also said, we think there's a little more of a journey here. And I think they're right. Yeah. I think they're right. But I do think it's a big step forward, a huge step forward. But I think I think we're more than halfway to Saul. But also remember, and I think this is so great because it's something I've hoped for from the beginning, there's this guy, Gene. He's living in hiding after the events of Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
He didn't die. He's alive. He's got a lot of time to think while he's making Cinnabons. And he's got a lot of room to think because he's got no one to talk to about it.
Yeah.
It's just him alone thinking about what he did, how he feels, what the outcome was, what he could possibly do next if he was ever allowed to do anything next. And I feel like that is going to be a great chapter. And maybe, and I don't know what they'll do, but we saw in Breaking Bad a guy devolve into his worst instincts. And I think in this show, we're seeing a guy make a choice to devolve into Saul, but then maybe has a chance to imagine himself, become a better person would be great. Because of the bad choices and the journey he went on, because he made selfish choices. It's basically everybody tries to learn from their mistakes in life, and sometimes we just can't help ourselves but learn the wrong lessons, and I think to be Saul is to take the wrong lessons from the traumas of this journey that he's on.
Somebody made reference to the Kim Wexler character. I'm wondering if you could just talk a little bit about
Ray Seahorn.
Yeah,
Fantastic. You can applaud for her. I love her. She's great. It's weird. Ray came from comedy too.
Oh, is that right?
Oh yeah. She worked a lot, and it was all sitcoms and stuff. But we hit it off immediately in our, chemistry read. There were 3 women who were up for the role, and we were just immediately doing great together and enjoying each other. And she's so great. And to play a powerful, strong woman in this show is really neat to see, and she's made for that. And she's a complex character who, when we meet her, is a straight arrow and absolutely, going down the right path. And then we see that she has sides to her that are a lot more complex. She has maybe even a darkness to her and has maybe participated in some unethical things or intentionally or accidentally. It's been a part of her life, and she's familiar with it, familiar with that gray area, and not entirely afraid of it, can even embrace it. And we have what I consider a great relationship in a way, a great partnership between Kim and Jimmy, where they support each other and they back each other up, even when Jimmy's doing the wrong thing, and she knows it. She says, I know you're doing the wrong thing, but I'm here for you. But I know you're doing the wrong thing. And that's a kind of a great relationship. I mean, that's a relationship that could go a long ways. You could get married to that person. It's really like, she doesn't say it's okay. But, in that scene with Chuck in season 2, Chuck's accusing Jimmy of everything that he did. She's standing there listening, knowing it's true, but she says, you're crazy and you're sick and you need help to Chuck. And they walk out and she punches Jimmy in the leg, saying, yeah, and I know you fucking did that. But she chooses to stay, to be a partner in this moment. And that's, I think, a great thing. And then this third season happens and they're really trying to help each other and back each other up. And it's weird. It's similar to, I think about Breaking Bad when Walter White gets remission, because it goes into remission. It's like, yeah, somehow that good thing is fueling all this bad stuff. It makes it worse. And so here these two, in the midst of all this, have this good thing. And it's weirdly maybe going to get them into more trouble than if they didn't,
We'll take some questions that were submitted by the audience in a moment, but I just before we do, I feel like I have to ask you at least to say a few good words also about Michael McKean.
Yeah, come on now. Well, thank you. Michael McKean was the star of this season. There's no question. Why he didn't get an Emmy nomination is impossible for me to figure out. I'd give mine back in a second if I could get him one. I already have 2 Emmys, so. Keep that in mind when you're doing that math. But I really, truly would. He is, there's nothing like his performance. This season is worth watching for that alone, no question. And it beats any amount of dragons on Game of Thrones. You can't CGI anything better than what he did. And it was interesting, that breakdown at the end, his character really breaks down in the 10th final episode. On the page, I didn't read as that special to me. It kind of read as like, he goes shithouse crazy and breaks everything up. All right. That'll be violent and fun to watch. But there was a texture to it. The fireworks of it were not in the breaking the walls and tearing shit up. That's not the main source of fireworks on screen. It's a real personal thing. You are with that guy, and he is cracking up, and he's in this violent act that he's doing. He's being more and more fragile. It's an amazing piece, and well, I don't know. I feel bad because no, I don't care what Michael says. He's a trooper, and he's done a million things, and not getting the nod from the Emmys is like, all right, yeah, well, whatever. I'm working. He's very excited about a job he's doing in London. I think he's in some theater there. But come on, there's no way that you don't feel a little like, did anybody see what I did? I think I gave all I got. And oh yeah, he did that over. It took a long time to shoot that sequence. No, it's a good thing to point out. That was a hard sequence to shoot, and he did all of that. Yes, physically challenging and a little almost dangerous, really, to be swinging hammers and shit. Yeah, but it was an incredibly personal thing to watch.
We have a question from a member named Gregory Bach. kind of similar. I think it kind of goes along with what we've been talking about just now. He says some of the most profound moments we see on the show are when the camera is focused on you with no dialogue, facial expressions tell the story, and he wants to know, are some of these directed or most of them organic?
I mean, I would like to take some credit for it. I do think that this is one thing that's great about this show is they give it over to us, these characters. I think they constantly thank us and compliment us for preparing. I don't know how you do a lot of the scenes we do without preparing. I think it would be a disaster. You just have nothing, and it would be a mess. And then additionally, there's a time limit to how much time we can shoot. So you can't show up and go, well, what are my lines today? Which, you can actually do that on some shows, but not on ours. There's no way you'd get through the day. So we rehearse for hours as much as we can, wherever we can, weekends, and we act it out and move through the scene, and sometimes we'll even plot out the scene, or if the set is being built over there, we go, can we use the set for the scene in next week? And we'll just go act it out. So we prep ourselves and talk about it and work it out, and then they kind of let us play it. I mean, we do get acting directions, but not many. I think sometimes when you get an acting direction, it's because, the show is very layered and it has these sort of long playing out stories. And maybe they need an emotion from you that doesn't maybe fit quite right on the first glance, but it's going to pay off later. Maybe oftentimes a character witnesses some behavior and it's something that impacts them, and we need to see their reaction. And so their reaction becomes very important, something that maybe in playing it you wouldn't naturally invest too much in it. But
this question is from an audience member named Alan Greenberg. He asks, who would Bob Odenkirk like to have dinner with, Jimmy or Saul?
Oh, Jimmy. I wouldn't go near Saul.
Laris, I believe, wants to ask, what brings you the greatest joy as an actor?
Well, I think when you do a hard scene where you have to dig down and lose yourself in the character, and maybe it's an emotional scene, it's a little intimidating, and you have to focus on it and sort of prep for it, and then when you're done, if you feel like you did it, which really you aren't done until you feel like you did it. We're not done on my show until I can say good. I feel good about that. That's a rewarding feeling. That's very sort of. It's still something a little new to me, and it's kind of weird and different. It's sort of like you went somewhere and now you've come back. I suppose a lot of you actually know what I'm talking about, and that's kind of a neat thing, a neat trick, and a neat thing to experience in life. I like watching the show because when they cut it together, they also find things that you didn't think of, and it's kind of, you see it in a new way. Yeah, I'm in the middle of this thing, so I don't have as much perspective on it as maybe I need to have to answer that.
This is from Jen Lane, who would like to know, and this is really more for the close viewers of the show. Did you come up with Squat Cobbler?
No, I didn't come up with that name, but here's what I did come up with. they didn't have a name for it. And they had me describing this thing. And I called Vincent Peter and I said, you know, usually when there's something like this in the world, there's a name for it. And it's a name that when you hear it, you go, it's the kind of thing where, all right, I mean, I'm going to use a real one like I did in that phone call. Have you ever heard of a plate job? All right. So I remember hearing that. And it's the kind of thing when somebody says it, did you ever hear that story about so-and-so? He supposedly he liked plate jobs. You, especially if you're a guy, go like, huh. Wow, weird. And you don't know what that is, but you don't want to admit it. You don't want to admit it. You don't know who to ask. And you kind of don't want to imagine it because you're like, what the hell could that be? And so I said, usually there's a name for it. And what that name does is those detectives who are listening to me, it makes them do that thing of like, oh yeah. like if there's a name for it, it must be real. Like a couple hundred people must do it, right? It's not just one guy. And you're not making it up. And if you lead with the name, you know, you like plate jobs, you know, like, then it kind of a weird kind of a coercive effect on the person who hears it of making them, it just establishes the thing as real when nothing about it is real and there's no, you know what I mean? And so I told them, you should have a name, I think. And they loved it. The logic of it, they were like, oh, right, of course. Then they went and came up with
Right.
the
So
name.
the next time
they actually came up with like 6 names, and I don't remember the others. But they sent me the names. They said, we're all laughing, and
So your vote also had some bearing.
I suppose. I'm not sure.
You might have changed history with your choice in some way.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So, this is an audience member named John B. wants to know, in comedy and or in acting, when did you know you were good?
Well, that's a dangerous question to ask. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's... I have a lot of work ahead of me, I hope. And some of it's going to be terrible, everyone. Sorry to let you down. I can only try my best. And I would say that there have been times when I didn't try my best. And that is not a good feeling. It's not a good feeling to not give everything you got and then be called out for it. When you read a review and you go, he's right. You know, that's a bad feeling. It's not so bad to go, he's right, that's how it turned out. It didn't turn out, but by God, we fucking tried. I did my fucking best. Not everybody loves this little movie I made, Girlfriend's Day, for Netflix, but I love it. And it is exactly what I wanted to make. So it doesn't hurt to hear criticisms of it. When people say, that didn't work, and what were you trying to do? It's not funny enough to be comedy. And, you know, I go, well, it's not for you. You know, it doesn't hurt to hear a criticism when you gave it your all and you worked every angle you could to make it work. So, well, when did I think I know better now to try to give it my all and feel good about the work that we did. But when did you know you were good? You only ever know you're good for a few short seconds. I think you should enjoy it when you do, right? When you come off stage and you go, fucking, I nailed that. You go ahead. It's okay. Feel good. Within that, accept that tomorrow you might suck. It's absolutely true. But all you can ever do is go, but I'm going to prepare for tomorrow. Because, you know, like I said, when you walk off stage and you go, I wasn't good, and they don't like it, and they're right, that's a shitty, and I didn't try my best. I didn't do all I could have done. You know, it's a weird thing. It's so simple, right? It's such a simple notion when I just told you. Like, you should have learned that when you're like 6. But I really feel like somewhere around the age of 35, 38 is where I went, what separates the really good people from the people who are real hit and miss? And in a way, if you go for any length of time, you're gonna be hit and miss. We have to have a little bit of luck to make this thing come together. A play, a movie, TV show. These are creative endeavors. They're group endeavors. There just has to be some luck in there. And you can't count on it, so you need to do everything else that you can, right? But the thought I had, and again, it's like fucking so simple, but it's just that the people who, you hear about Tom Cruise and how hard he works. You know, you've heard the stories, and I've had friends who've worked with him, and he just does everything he can to prepare, to be ready, to give it his all every single time. So that's what you do, and then it'll work or it won't work, but you can sort of feel it when the creator of the piece or the people in the piece did their best, even if it doesn't work out. There's some part of it that feels like you can't entirely dismiss it. You can just feel the integrity of that effort. And so that's something I think you can always shoot for, right? And that's sort of what I'm gonna try to keep doing.
You mentioned Girlfriend's Day.
Yeah,
and, you know,
for Netflix,
yeah.
which is, you know, a movie that I helped write 15 years ago, had nowhere to exist in the world, isn't the length of a full feature, is kind of a parody, but not really a parody. It's a noir, but it celebrates noir. It's weird and odd, and it just, there's no place for it to exist, but then Netflix is created.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be an hour and 20 minutes on Netflix. You can be any length. They don't
Right.
care.
Right.
And you can appeal to a small demographic, you know, people who love noir and love Mr. Show.
Right.
Boom, they're gonna love this movie. That is a very tiny group of people. They would fit in this room. But they don't care.
Right.
And as long as some people will love it, which is interesting, it's kind of parallel to what we discovered when we did Mr. Show at HBO. Yeah. Chris Albrecht said to us, guys, I don't care if everyone watches the show. I don't care if it gets big ratings. We don't need big ratings. We have to do compelling things here. Things that, at least for someone in your extended family, is their favorite thing.
Yeah.
And if we can do that, then they're going to sign up for the service so that the teenager gets his show that he loves. Right. You know, or whatever it is, you know. Yeah. So it's a neat thing that this landscape of media right now kind of fits with what artists love, making something more pure, you know, and it's true. Netflix doesn't really care if tons of people watch your stuff, as long as one person in the family needs to see that show. Who's got Netflix? Mom and Dad, if you don't have it, I'm going to go to Uncle Joe's because I'm going to see my show. You know, I mean, I feel that way too. There's something on, you know, that thing where you go to all the services you've got and you're like, where is it?
That's the thing. Now you need like the overarching
Yes.
thing to tell you like what's on Amazon or Hulu or Netflix. It's just.
Oh, well, Twin Peaks is on Showtime, right?
Right.
So I don't have Showtime, but I have to see Twin Peaks.
Sure.
I have to. So I don't know how I'm going to do it. But the first thing I need to do is I need to get home, get in front of the box thing. I need my wife there because I do not know how to navigate that shit. And actually, no, there's an app.
Yeah.
I have it. Somebody gave it to me. Do you know this app? Watch Now, or what's it called? Okay, it's not that one, but I believe that's a real one. Can I stream it? What, guys, what is the... If you bring my phone up here, Carrie, I'll tell them what the app is. And here's why I know. I'm writing a movie with some guys, and I keep mentioning the movie Together by Lucas Moodysson. Do you know that movie? Great movie. Lucas Moodysson, Together. And I keep talking about it. I've seen it, 8 times in my life. And I'm like, you got to see it. You guys got to watch it. And, and I go, it used to be on Netflix. And, it's called Just Watch. Right. So one of the guys goes, I've got Just Watch. He goes, it's still on Netflix. And I go, oh, shit. All right, cool. I didn't even know that. And I love it. And I have Netflix. So I did watch it again. And it's great. Do you know it?
No, but I will look it up now.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah. No, I feel like I've let you down by not, but I have to.
That's
now,
right.
Yeah, now I have to. I feel
that's
obliged. Yeah. We're unfortunately out of time, so this gives me the opportunity to go home and watch the film, but it's...
Well, let's do 3 questions fast.
3 questions fast.
I'll short answer.
Okay. This is going to be way too long.
I make it...
Okay. How did Second City prepare you for your acting career?
Improvisation was originally developed by various people in the theater for writers. Initially, Keith Johnstone, who wrote the book Impro, developed those exercises for writers to improvise, to get their brains cooking. Then he did it with the actors and found that it worked great, but with drama actors. And then it was fully intended, and that book is fully intended for drama. And people laugh at it because they can't help themselves. But improvisation is a tool for dramatic actors.
Do Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould encourage your wit in the same way?
Absolutely. They love joke lines that I come up with. And there was episode 6, where, and it's very rare, Ann Cherkis wrote it, great script, but I thought there were 5 or 10 places for some real funny stuff. And they heard every one of my pitches, and I got a lot into that episode because it was just a funny episode. He was making the commercials, and it was a lot of comedy and lightness to it. And so there was room for what I do. But in the drama, I don't go near it.
Last question is, when will you be back on NPR?
NPR? Oh, gee, I don't know. Oh. I have no idea.
Well, we'll put it out into the universe, and hopefully it'll
I'll try to learn the banjo. Yeah. That'll get me on quicker. All right.
Bob Odenkirk, a pleasure. Thank you.